On January 28, 1890, Rizal left Paris for Brussels, capital of Belgium. Two reasons impelled Rizal to leave Paris, namely, first, the cost of living in Paris was very high because of the Universal Exposition, and the second is the gay social life of the city hampered his literary works, especially the writing of his second novel, El Filibusterismo. His friends, including M.H. Del Pilar and Valentin Ventura, were of the belief that he left because he was running away from a girl, just as he left London. Rizal was accompanied by Jose Albert when he moved to Brussels. They lived in a modest boarding house on 38th Rue Philippe Champagne, which was run by two Jacobin sisters, Suzanne and Marie. Later, Albert left the city and was replaced by Jose Alejandro, an engineering student. In Brussels, Rizal was busy writing his second novel, which was continuation of the Noli He. He was never idle even for an hour. Aside from its chapters, he wrote articles for La Solidaridad and letters to his family and friends. Being a physician, he spent part of his time in the medical clinic for recreation. He had gymnastics at the gymnasium and target practice and fencing at the armory. Speaking of Rizal's frugality, Jose Alejandro, his roommate in Brussels, said, "In Brussels, we took our meals in a house, and Rizal on one occasion suggested that we eat pancit. We are spending so much a day, and so we spent on days appropriation for the purchase of the necessary ingredients. It seems, however, that he committed an error in his calculations this time, for we spent 2 days appropriation, and the pancit came out more than what we intended to have. In order to remedy the error, we were compelled to have pancit for lunch and supper for 2 days." Articles published in La Solidaridad during his sojourn in Brussels. Rizal, who wrote articles for La Solidaridad in defense of his oppressed people and to point out the evils of Spanish rule in the Philippines. Among these articles, which appeared in the patriotic periodical, were: first, A La Defensa to La Defensa, April 30, 1889. This was a reply to an anti-Filipino writing of a Spanish author, Patricio de la Escosura, which was published by the La Defensa on March 30, 1889. Verdad para todos, The Truth for All, May 31, 1889. Rizal's defense against the Spanish charges that the native local officials were ignorant and deprived. Pietro Tugalo, June 15, 1889. In this article, Rizal exposed Baranti's ignorance on the Tagalog theatrical art. Una Profanacion, or A Profanation, July 31, 1889. A bitter attack against the friars for denying Christian burial to Mariano Herbosa in Calamba, because he was a brother-in-law of Rizal. Herbosa, husband of Lucia, died of cholera on May 23, 1889. Fifth, Verdades Nuevas, New Truths, July 31, 1889. A reply to the Vicente Belloc Sanchez letter published in La Patria, Madrid newspaper on July 4, 1889, which asserted that the granting of reforms in the Philippines would ruin the peaceful and maternal rule of the friars. 6. Crueldad or Cruelty, August 15, 1889. A brilliant defense of Blumentritt from the scurrilous attacks of his enemies. 7. Differences, September 15, 1889. A reply to the biased article entitled Old Truths, published in La Patria on August 14, 1889, which ridiculed those Filipinos who asked for reforms. 8. Inconsequences, November 30, 1889. A defense of Antonio Luna against the attack of Pablo Merdias in the Barcelona newspaper, El Pueblo Soberano. 9. y Risas, Tears and Laughter, November 30, 1889, a denunciation of Spanish racial prejudice against the brown Filipinos. Rizal mentioned in his article how the audience, composed mostly of Spaniards and mestizos, stopped applauding when he received first prize in the literary contest in 1880 because of his brown color. 10. Ingratitudes. January 15, 1890, a reply to the Governor-General Valeriano Weyler, who, while visiting Calamba, told the Philippine people that they should not allow themselves to be deceived by the vain promises of their ungrateful sons. New orthography of Tagalog language. In spite of his European education and his knowledge of foreign languages, Rizal loved his own native language. He was the first to advocate the Philippinization of its orthography. For instance, the Tagalog letters K and W should be used instead of the Spanish C and O. Thus, the Hispanized Tagalog word salakor, peasant headgear, should be written salakot, and Spanish Tagalog term araw be changed into araw, as Carly as in September 1886 when he was in Leipzig. Rizal adopted the Philippinized Tagalog orthography in his Tagalog translations of Schiller's Wilhelm Tell and Andersen's fairy tales, and again he used it in his first novel, Noli Me Tangere, Berlin, 1887. While he was sojourning in Brussels, his article entitled Sobre la Nueva Ortografía de la Lengua Tagala, the New Orthography of the Tagalog Language, was published in La Solidaridad on April 15, 1890. In this article, he laid down the rules of the new Tagalog orthography, and with a modesty and sincerity, he gave the credit for the adoption. The gambling Filipinos in Madrid were angry when they learned of Rizal's moralizing. They diversely called him Papa, Pope instead of Pepe. Bad news from home. Letters from home which Rizal received in Brussels worried him. The Calamba agrarian trouble was getting worse. The management of the Dominican hacienda continually raised the land rents until such time that the Rizal's father refused to pay his rent. Other tenants, inspired by Don Francisco's courage, also refused to pay the unreasonable rents. The Dominican order filed a suit in courts to dispose the Rizal family of their lands in Calamba. Meanwhile, the tenants, including the Rizal family, were persecuted. Pasiano and the brothers-in-law Antonio Lopez, husband of Narcisa, and Silvestre Obaldo, husband of Olympia, were deported to Mindoro. Another brother-in-law, Manuel T. Hidalgue, husband of Santornina, was banished for a second time to Bohol. The sad news from home depressed Rizal. His heart bled to know the sorrowful plight of his parents, brother, and brothers-in-law from Brussels. He wrote to his sister Soledad on June 6, 1890, "Have caused so much harm to our family, but at least there remains to us the consolation of knowing that the motive is not disgraceful, nor does it humiliate anybody. On the contrary, it raises us up, gives us more dignity in the eyes of our very enemies themselves. To fall with the head high and the brow serene is not to fall, it is to triumph. Sad thing is to fall with the stain of dishonor. Moreover, I may be what my enemies desire me to be, yet never an accusation are they be able to hurl against me, which makes me blush of lower my forehead. And I hope that to God I will be merciful enough with me to prevent me from committing one of those faults which would involve my family." In his moment of despair, Rizal had bad dreams during the nights in Brussels, when he was restless because he was always thinking of his unhappy family in Calamba. Although he was not so superstitious, he feared that he would not live long. He was not afraid to die, but wanted to finish his second novel before he went to his grave.